Can you use a messy medium like alcohol inks in a clean and simple way? You may not think so, but in this video I show you how. Hello there, Michelle Short here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I have two tags to share with you using alcohol inks in a clean and simple way. So let's get started. First of all, I have die cut the Terrific Tags die 4 times, twice from Yupo paper and twice from white cardstock. I'm taking the Yupo paper pieces and I'm going to apply alcohol inks on top. These alcohol inks are what you would use to refill your artist alcohol markers, but you can use them on their own as alcohol inks separately, which is what I'm doing today. I'm using the Cherry Blossom collection for my first tag here. I love these pink shades, and I'm using the darkest shade first of all, which is Razzleberry, and I've just applied a few drops onto the tag. As you can see, I'm trying to go from kind of like the top left hand corner to the bottom right hand corner. I used an air blowing tool just to kind of move that around, and then I'm going in with Pink Diamond alcohol ink, and this is quite a bit lighter in shade, and although it looks a bit more orangey on camera, once it dries it does dry more of a pink shade. I'm then going in with the Rubellite and I'm just adding more of that alcohol ink onto the tag and moving that around with that air blowing tool. I do really want this tag to kind of have quite a bit of interest, some kind of harsh lines to it. I really like that look, but the next tag that I'm going to do is a little bit more blended. So I'm going back in with the darkest shade, which is the Razzleberry. I really love this colour. It's kind of really dark, rich pink. I'm then taking some isopropyl alcohol and I'm using a pipette just to add some of that onto the tag, and that's going to blend those colours slightly and lighten them as well. So I'm going to go back in with that air blowing tool and I'm just going to move the alcohol inks around. Like I said, I still want there to be some kind of harsh edges, but I do want the alcohol inks to move a little bit more. I don't want too many of those really dark kind of what look like sticky blobs in the middle, but I do still want some darker and lighter areas as well. So the thing with alcohol inks is, although I'm using them in a clean and simple way here, they are a messy medium. There's no getting away from that, but I'm just happen to use them in a clean and simple way for the design. So I do have some gloves on here, and you want to make sure that you're using them in a well ventilated area. I'm just using that air blowing tool there just to kind of dry the tag as best as possible, and then I'm taking some of that isopropyl alcohol and a really old brush. You don't want to use a really nice watercolor brush or anything for this. You want a really old brush, and I'm just flicking on some of that alcohol, and like what water does to watercolors, the isopropyl alcohol does the same thing for alcohol ink. So it's going to brighten up some of those areas and you get those kind of bubbles, which I really like the look of. So I'm just using my tweezers here just to lift that up, and I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to work on my second tag. So this is the Cool Summer Night collection. I really love these blues, and for this one I'm adding some of that isopropyl alcohol on first, and this is so that it's going to be like a wet on wet technique, similar to what you do with watercolors, and the alcohol inks are just going to blend a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with the first colour here, which is the Sea Glass. Just adding a few drops of that on, and before I move any of it, I'm just going to add all of the colours on first for this one. So this is the Ocean Wave colour. I'm then going to go in with Dusk, which is quite a bit darker, and then I'm going to go in with Desert Night, which is the darkest shade. Ideally, I wanted the alcohol inks to kind of go from the top right to the bottom left on this tag, but because of that isopropyl alcohol, they did move quite a lot, as you can see. I was fine with it in the end. The thing with alcohol inks is, although I really love clean and simple cards and the way that I can control the design as such. You can't necessarily always control alcohol inks, but I do still really love using them. So I'm just taking that isopropyl alcohol and I'm trying to kind of move the colour a little bit further away from that top part of the tag. It's just going to lighten it slightly, and as you can see here, it's kind of given a little bit more of a blended look. You do still have some kind of striations in it, but not quite as much as the pink tag. So I'm just adding a little bit more of that sea glass colour in the bottom right hand corner, and then adding some more isopropyl alcohol there at the top. Just kind of manipulating where the alcohol inks kind of go with that air blowing tool. And I really love how this looks. I think it would look really lovely for kind of like an underwater scene, but you could also use this kind of like a galaxy scene as well, which would be really nice, or like a night sky. So again, I'm using that air blowing tool just to dry the alcohol inks as best as possible, and then I'm splattering on some more of that isopropyl alcohol. So I just dip the brush in the alcohol and then tap that on top of the tag with my finger, and that's just going to add some of those droplets. And I do just let both of these tags sit to dry. They did take about 20 minutes to dry, although it may have been a little bit longer, but I was working on the other elements. So now I'm going to stamp my sentiments. This is the Flower Vine stamp set, and I absolutely love this stamp set. It's got tiny little sentiments in it, which I absolutely love. They're great for loads of different designs. So I'm going to stamp those down onto some black cardstock. I prep the cardstock with an anti-static powder tool and I removed the excess powder, and now I'm inking up those stamps with embossing ink, which is a clear sticky ink, so that I can add my embossing powder on top. And I'm using a pure white crisp embossing powder. I absolutely love the look of white embossing on black cardstock. So I'm just going to heat that embossing powder until it's completely melted. I like to heat set from the front and the back of the cardstock. And then I'm going to cut those sentiments out into strips. And I'm going to use the new Sentiment Banners cover die for this. Now this is a whole cover die, so you could run it through your die cutting machine and cut loads of different banners out. There are loads of different sizes, which is amazing, and there's also a hot foil plate that you can coordinate with this set as well. But because I can never seem to cut first and then stamp on top, I'm going to do it this way. So I'm going to line up the cover plate with the banner that I want to use for my sentiment, like I would for any other die, and then run it through my die cutting machine. I've held that in place with some low tack tape, and that's just going to make sure that my sentiment is perfectly straight inside that banner. But you could definitely do it the other way around if you wanted to. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the other sentiment here. I absolutely love that these have just got loads of different sizes in, so loads of Altenew sentiments will fit inside of these banner strips. And then I can pop that one out as well, and then I've got my two sentiments, and I really love those fishtail banner edges on either side. Next, I have my alcohol ink tags here, and they have dried, but as you can see, especially with this one here, with the pink one, I do have some white areas, and I've got some of that alcohol ink on the side. That's just because it seeped underneath the tag as I was adding the alcohol ink on. So I'm just using a sanding block here. Mine is really dirty, but it doesn't matter at all. And I'm just sanding down those edges, and that's going to remove that excess alcohol ink from the edges of the tag. And it's also just going to smooth out the edges of the Yupo paper as well. Next, I've taken the leaf dies from the Decorative Swirls Die Set, and I've cut each of the leaf image twice from white cardstock. That's £110 Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. I did it twice just so that I can layer them on top of each other, just for some added dimension. So I'm going to add some 2-in-1 precision glue pen onto the back of the leaves here. So just adding small dabs of that, and I am just going to dab off the excess on a piece of scrap paper and then add that leaf onto the tag. And that's just going to kind of follow that design of the alcohol ink. And then I'm just going to add an acrylic block over the top just to hold it down with something heavy while it dries. And then I can apply the glue to the next die cut that I'm going to add on top. What I love about this 2-in-1 precision glue pen is that you can actually let the glue dry for a little while and then it becomes repositionable. So if you're worried about the glue kind of oozing out, you could let it dry for a little while and then stick it down, and it still sticks down perfectly afterwards. You just want to let it dry for a little while. So I've just added that one on top, and then I can do the exact same thing for the blue tag. And this leaf design is a little bit longer in size, and that's just going to cover a little bit more of the tag. Like I said, I originally wanted it to go kind of like the way that the leaf would be, but I still think it worked out quite nicely, even though the alcohol ink did cover most of that tag. So I can just use my tweezers just to help me place that on top, and then make sure that I stick down each of the leaf pieces right on top of each other. Like I said, you've got some wiggle time with that glue, which is really nice. And then I can let them dry completely. And then just because I added the leaf just slightly below the bottom of the tag, I'm just going to cut that off with some scissors. So it's going to kind of look like the leaf is coming up from the bottom of the tag. So I'm just going to cut this other one off here, and I did decide to leave the other piece overhanging the other side of the tag. So do you remember this piece that I cut the banners out from? I'm not going to waste it. I'm actually going to use it to pop up a little bit of the sentiment strip, because I'm going to place the sentiment strip over where the leaves are, and that's 2 layers of cardstock. When I add the foam on top, that half of the sentiment strip is going to be too high and it's not going to be flat. So I'm just adding 2 small layers of that black cardstock onto the side of the sentiment strip, and then when I add the foam tape on top and I add it to the tag, it's all going to be 1 layer. So that's the instant dimension foam tape. Just cut a small amount of that, and then I can remove the backing, and then I can place that down onto the tags. And I did the same thing for the blue tag as well. Just making sure that that's really well stuck down. And then before I go any further, I want to add the white cardstock tags onto the back of these ones. Although the backs to me don't look too bad at all, I do want to make sure that I've got a nice white area to write my sentiment if I wanted to send these as tags. Sometimes I send them as standalone tags, sometimes I add them onto parcels, packages, presents, or sometimes I add them onto cards as well, which I've shown here on the channel. So I'm just making sure that they're really well stuck down. I'm sticking them from the back with the glue tape, and then I'm making sure that they're kind of lined up from the front, because I want to make sure that the front is what matters more than the back. I'm then going to add some twine through the tops of the tags. So I'm just kind of poking that twine through and then kind of pushing the other edge through that, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And then I can tie that in a bow at the front. And then I do just take my time just to manipulate the bow to get it to how I want it to be. And then I can cut those tails off. And then I tend to do this and then make it a little bit smaller and then cut them down again. And then to finish off these tags, I'm just adding some raindrop embellishments onto the tags. I thought that the raindrops would look quite nice along with the kind of bubbles that I've created with the isopropyl alcohol. So as you can see, these tags did end up quite clean and simple in design, and I think that's because of what I've added on top. I do think that the white areas on the tag does help as well, but because I've added just white die cuts on top of the nice colourful backgrounds, it tends to try and make them a bit more clean and simple in design, which I personally really love. But if you don't love that look, go all out and add lots on top and do whatever you wanted to. But I did really really want to show that you can really use any messy medium that you want and make it into a clean and simple design if you want to. So that's the tags finished for today. Like I said, I really like how they turned out with those white die cut leaves on top. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.